is he ever gonna shut up and let us leave? Michael screamed internally to himself, simmering in his seat, regretting he had eaten that third greasy enchilada at his favorite restaurant, La Luna's. He waited anxiously for class to be over. Contemporary art history usually only ran about 3 hours, but tonight his professor was blathering on and on, so there was no chance in hell he was getting out early. Yeah, he could just get up and go to the bathroom. It was college after all, and you don't exactly need permission to drop a loaf. Michael, however, didn't like making deposits to the porcelain bank while at school. The thought of a classmate recognizing his shoes under the stall door in a bathroom that smelt like the inside of someone's bowels made him just ever so slightly uncomfortable. Not even listening to his professor's ramblings at this point, he turned his gaze to the clock on his laptop. A class that should have ended at 7 p.m. was now going over by 18 minutes. Jesus. If this class doesn't end soon, I'm gonna crap my pants before I can get home, he thought to himself. He shifted back and forth in his seat and pinched his butt cheeks together as hard as he could. But nothing could quiet the beast bellowing in his belly. As Michael was beginning to accept the fact he may never be released from this hellish torment, he noticed other students beginning to pack up their things. Slamming his laptop closed, he thought, oh, thank God he's wrapping it up. Tossing his handouts and laptop into his backpack, he quickly stood up, but maybe a little too quickly. Oh, no, he nervously thought, realizing that there was no way he was making it home now. It was coming. So as not to make a scene, he pushed his way as politely as possible through the crowd of departing students. While the group of students went left at the end of the hall towards the parking lot, Michael instead went right. With a clear path ahead of him, his brisk walk quickly evolved into a hastening jog. Thankfully, nothing stood between him and sweet release, as all the other classes had ended much earlier. Reaching his destination, he burst through the bathroom door, but stopped short. Jeez man, what the hell? You freaked me out. I almost pissed on my shoes. Michael, now feeling very embarrassed, apologized. Sorry man, I didn't know anyone was in here. Making his way awkwardly past the stranger, he took the furthest stall he could away from the guy. Not even bothering to hang his backpack up on the hook, he dropped it to the floor and pulled down his pants. As he sat down on the toilet, he struggled to hold it in while waiting for the other guy to finish washing his hands and leave. Peeking through the crack of the stall door, he could see the stranger making his way out. Oh, thank God, he thought with a bit of relief. Happy pushing, freak, yelled the stranger as he exited the bathroom, causing Michael to roll his eyes in frustration. Hearing the bathroom door swing shut, he finally had a moment alone and let loose. That relief was immediate, and he relaxed against the back of the toilet. He didn't even care what could be all over it. He was glad to be alone at last. Apart from the man that had just left, there more than likely wouldn't be another soul left in the building. He sat there for several minutes while his body took its sweet time going through the process, thinking about what would have been the best comeback for that guy's exiting remark, but mostly to save some of the dignity he felt he had lost. With another blast hitting the bowl, he chuckled. God help the janitor in the morning. That's when the lights went out. What the hell? He whispered in shock. The bathroom was in complete darkness. Did somebody turn them off? No. I would have heard them open the door, he thought. The bathroom's size and surfaces would have caused every little sound to echo, so even something as simple as a footstep would have been doubled. Nothing. He couldn't hear anything. He sat there frozen for a moment, considering the possibilities. Maybe it's a power outage? No, I can hear sounds coming from the vents. That means the air's still running. Maybe the light bulbs burned out? But they wouldn't all go out at the same time, would they? He cut off his own thought with his palm slamming right into his forehead. The damn lights are on a sensor. Coming to this realization, Michael now had to figure out what kind of sensor it was. Sound activated? He tried a series of small yelps, which quickly transitioned into louder exclamations of, "Hey! Whoo! Yo!" That not giving him any results, he proceeded with large bouts of clapping with his hands. Clapping having failed him and becoming somewhat irritated, he then banged on the stall walls several times. No go. Maybe they're motion activated? This test would be tricky considering he was stuck on the can. He reached his arms up and waved them side to side. With the lights still not reacting, he stretched his arms even higher, now hovering a bit over the toilet seat. Michael is not in the best of shape, so holding this posture for a long time just wasn't going to happen. Falling back onto his seat and catching his breath, he figured the sensor must be further into the room. He unrolled a wad of toilet paper, balled it up, and tossed it over the top of the stall wall towards the sinks. Still nothing. He tried again, aiming a bit closer to where he thought the trash can might be. Nothing again. Deciding not to go for a third try because he still needed some squares to wipe, he cracked his knuckles in frustration. Maybe body heat sets them off? The door opening could trip it, too, I guess? These things and more rolled through his mind as he tried to come up with a solution. He finally just resided in the fact that he was going to have to just finish up and deal with the pitch-black darkness as best he could. Luckily, Michael remembered that he lives in the new millennium, so he had the ultimate weapon when facing the abyss, his handy-dandy phone. He reached down to the side of his crumpled pants and fumbled his fingers around for the pocket. Finding the opening, he wormed his fingers into the awkward space and could feel the edge of his phone. He gripped the edge with his fingertips and attempted to pull it out, but it kept getting caught in the scrunched-up fabric of his pocket's inner lining. Come on, you piece of shit phone, work with me here, he said as he tugged harder and harder. As his frustration built, so did his efforts to free his phone from its prison, and with one last mighty tug, he pulled it loose. Sadly, the might of his tug was stronger than his grip, and the phone flung from his hand. He heard it as it slammed into the wall and clattered to the ground. Just great, he exclaimed to himself as he reached down and, reluctantly, felt around on the nasty stall floor for it. In his effort to locate the phone, he accidentally hit it with his hand and heard it slide into the next stall over. Realizing what he had just done, he slammed his hand into the floor and shouted, "Are you kidding me?" While cursing at the situation, he failed to hear the bathroom door open. The lights flashed back on and nearly blinded Michael, whose eyes had become accustomed to the dark. He shot back up into a sitting position and attempted to readjust his vision. That's when he heard the door closing and realized what had happened. It was the door, I knew it! Knowing now that another person had entered the bathroom, he shouted to them, "Damn, am I glad you came in. The lights went out and I couldn't get them to turn back on. I was starting to freak out there for a second." No response came from the other person. Just silence. Why is he not talking back? Maybe I freaked him out a little with the shouting? Whatever. I just want out of here, he thought to himself as he gathered the last few squares of his toilet paper. As Michael was busily wiping, he could hear the newcomer making his way through the bathroom. Nothing about this seemed out of the ordinary until he noticed that the sound of the steps seemed to stop in front of his stall. He slowly looked down to see the front tips of 2 sneakers pointed towards his door. Can I help you?" he asked, starting to get a little weirded out by his stranger's actions. There was no response, and the feet were unmoving. Leaning slightly to the side, trying and failing to catch a glimpse of the guy, Michael asked sternly, "What do you want?" Still, the stranger said nothing. Now feeling very vulnerable, he pulled his pants up and got to his feet. As he reached down to grab his backpack, the sound of metal scraping against the door gave him pause. He hesitated only for a moment before standing back up to hear the tapping of something metal on the door. There was no doubt in Michael's mind at this point that this person had bad intentions. He looked down quickly to make sure the door was locked, and straddling the toilet, backed up against the wall. "I don't know what your problem is, man, but leave me the hell alone." The tapping abruptly stopped, and Michael thought that he might have scared the guy off. He breathed a small sigh of relief, until he spotted the tips of fingers coming over the top of the stall door. What the hell is he doing now? The man grabbed the top of the door, gently moving it back and forth, seeming to test whether or not it was locked. Fear welling up inside of him, Michael's mind ran wild with thoughts of how to escape this nightmare. He hugged his backpack tighter to his chest as he whipped his head around, frantically trying to devise a plan. This space is too small to fight him, and I can't call for help. If I scream, no one's gonna hear me. What the hell can I do? As the stranger began to pound relentlessly on the stall door, fight or flight took over Michael, and he knew exactly what he had to do. He raised his backpack high above his head and, stepping towards the stall door, smashed his pack over the edge of the door onto the head of his would-be attacker. The man stopped pounding on the door. Michael heard him let out an audible grunt of pain. The shock of the backpack hitting him caused him to take a step back from the door. This gave Michael precious few seconds to take action. He quickly unlocked the stall door and threw the full force of his body weight against it. The impact of the door slamming into the man caused him to lose his footing. He fell backward onto the floor, dropping the metal ruler from his hand, giving Michael a clear path to run. Like prey running from predator, he sprung from the stall and ran for his life. Every inch felt like a mile, and every second felt like an eternity. Only one thought raced through his mind: "Get to the door!" As he passed the urinals, his feet slipped out from under him, and he fell hard onto the floor, cracking the back of his head on the wet ceramic tile. Oh my God, are you okay?" the stranger asked as he walked towards Michael. I didn't mean for you to get hurt, man. I was just trying to scare you, like you scared me earlier," he said frantically as he watched the blood pool on the floor around Michael's head. Michael lay there, only conscious long enough to see the shock of horror on the stranger's face before him. To his surprise, it was the guy from earlier. Michael's last thought as he faded away was, "I guess I did scare the piss out of him." Thanks for listening, and don't forget to flush.